Now we are going to learn about the power resources. On the basis of the source, power resources is divided in two types. One is conventional sources of power and another one the non-conventional sources of power. Actually, the conventional source of power which have been using for a long time are called conventional sources. You can say these type of resources are used from the time immemorial. Clear? Or you can say from a long period of time these type of resources are continuously using. Example like thermoelectric power, hydroelectric power, nuclear power. So such type of resources are used for a long period of time. And on the other hand, the non-conventional power resources, actually these type of resources are not popular economically, or you can say commercially on large scale. On the other hand, you can say these type of resources have been discovered and used recently. Clear? Have been discovered and used recently. So these type of resources are called as the non-conventional resources. Example like solar energy, wind energy. So these type of resources are basically called as the non-conventional resources. So we need to know the differences between the conventional energy and the non-conventional energy. Here you can see the first point that is written conventional sources of energy that have been used from the time immemorial. So you can understand from a long period of time that type of resource are continuously using right now. And the next one you can understand on the other hand, that is the non-conventional sources of energy. These type of resources have been discovered and used recently. So that is the recent era this type of resources are using. Next point, that is the conventional sources of energy. Give some example like the thermal power, hydroelectric power, nuclear energy. On the other hand, the non-conventional sources of energy like as example the solar power, tidal energy, wave energy. Third one, that these type of resources are exhaustible forms of energy. Also you can say the fund resources. What is the meaning? If you use one time this type of resources, you remember that these type of resources are lost from the world. Clear? On the other hand, the non-conventional sources of energy which are called as inexhaustible, that means these type of resources as a flow resources you can use continuously for long period of time. There is a low loss of such type of resources. Fourth one, the these type of resource, the conventional sources of energy, that is limited in stock, so you cannot use too much. That's why they are very expensive. On the other hand, the non-conventional energy resources, those are basically ubiquitous in nature. You have already not what are the ubiquitous type of resources, and they are cheaper than the conventional resources. Next one, the fifth point, the use of conventional sources of energy causes environmental pollution. That is the most important things you should remember, that if you continuously use the conventional sources of energy, so there is a pollution or the environmental degradation takes place. It is because there is continuously burning of coal, or maybe the natural gas that have been uses, or maybe the petroleum. So there continuously degradation of the environment through some pollution. On the other hand, the non-conventional sources of energy which are basically called as the non-pollutant. And the last one, that the conventional sources of energy that basically produce waste materials, as well as that type of waste material right now it have been using or reusing. And on the other hand, the non-conventional sources of energy do not produce any waste materials. Now we are going to learn about the thermal powers. So there is a no question mark that the thermal powers that have been produce a lots of energy in India. And it is true to say that the thermal electricity is produced in India from the low quality coal, that is basically the lignite type of coals. But right now some few amount of electric is now producing from the natural gas also. One important corporation, that is basically the National Thermal Power Corporation, that relates with such kind of thermal plant that have been generated throughout India, you can say. In West Bengal, I am going to tell you some of the important places where you can able to see such kind of thermal power plants. Example like Bandel, one is in Sautal and another one the Bokkeshwar, Kolaghat and Sagordiki. So these five places are important is because there the thermal power station is located. And excluding West Bengal, there is also in UP, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Odisha and many other states you can able to see such kind of thermal power plants. Clear? So you should understand this one, that the thermal power plants is one of the important sources of energy in India. Next important sources of conventional energy, that is the hydroelectric power. It is true to say that it is also called as the white coal to some people. And water is, oh, you all know that is a renewable resources, but it is, there are many other favorable conditions needed to generate the hydroelectric power. Some of the favorable geographical conditions, like as example the rugged topography, supply of sufficient and the regular water, you can say. Some places there is needed of the permanent landscape. So these type of important factors are also important to generate the hydroelectric power. Some of the economic conditions are also important, like as example the high technology, as well as you need to get the supply of huge capital, and on the other hand the demand of electricity. In all over the world, the hydroelectric power is too much uses, you all know that. And in India there are many hydroelectric power stations that have been set up. Like as example some of the areas, like as example some places in West Bengal, Tilaiya, Maithon, Panchet, so that dams are important for the hydroelectric power project. I am going to tell you some of the important names. Example like the Bhakra Nangal in Punjab and Haryana, the Moyurakhi project in Jharkhand and West Bengal, Damodar Valley Corporation in Jharkhand and West Bengal, one important project like Tungabhadra project on the river Krishna, the Jog power station in Karnataka, and the first modern hydel power station in India was set up at Shiv Samudram on river Kaveri in Karnataka in 1902. So you should remember for the short question. Next important sources of power energy, that is basically the nuclear atomic power energy. You should remember two important resources of atomic power, that is uranium and the other one thorium. You should remember about the storage of uranium in India, that is the in Jodhgora in Jharkhand, but in other places also in Singhbhum district, in Gaya, as well as in Munger of Bihar, so Hazaribagh districts in Jharkhand. So that places you can able to find out uranium also. On the other hand, if you think about the thorium is basically collected from the monazite silica, and most probably there is a biggest monazite store in India. And it have been guessed that this type of thorium that have been reserved particularly in Kerala and the Tamil Nadu coastal part. Clear? So you should remember about some of the sources of uranium. And now some of the places where you can able to get some nuclear power plant in India, example like Kagrapara in Gujarat, Kundakulam in Tamil Nadu, So the non-conventional sources of power, we have already told you that these type of resources are basically new to our environment, so they are not used commercially or economically on a large scale. So these type of resources are also called as an eco-friendly resources. Actually if you use such type of resources, so there are many advantages, like they are the renewable power resources, they are not pollutants, you can say the non-pollutant type of resources, they are available in nature, and there is you always remember this type of resources free from the danger. Some of the examples of non-conventional resources, they are the solar energy, wind energy, geothermal energy, tidal energy. So these type of energy you can say as an non-conventional resources. Also you can say the renewable energy resources. First one, that the solar energy. The solar energy, you should remember that the energy which is produced from the sun's heat or light is basically called as the solar energy. And if you think about the uses, that the solar water heating system, that is the main thing we can use. If we used to heat it up, that type, or you can say, like as example, the solar cooker, solar dryer, so solar light, so they are the different type of uses of this type of energy. Example, right now if you think about some of the hilly station, like as example, in different places of Himachal Pradesh, in Darjeeling, also in the Sundarban in West Bengal, so there is basically this type of resources are using right now. And addition to that, if you think about some of the solar plants that have been used in different schools, street lights also. Next type of resource, that's the wind energy. So we can understand easily that the wind energy, that this type of energy comes from the wind, you can say, that is basically this type of energy that have been used in USA for the first time, and later on that have been expanded all over the world. And in the perspective of India, if always remember Lamba of Gujarat. Repeat, Lamba of Gujarat is the biggest wind energy producing center in Asia. Clear? Also some of the wind plants that have been set up in Sundarban also. Next type of resource that have been basically the tidal energy. Tidal energy, you can understand that the energy produced from the high tidal region is basically called as the tidal energy. And if you think about the generation of this tidal energy, this energy was generated in France for the first time in 1966. And in the perspective of India, there is a large tidal energy plant has built in Tamil Nadu recently. Also, you should remember some other sources of non-conventional energy resources, like as example the geothermal power, biogas. So hope you understand this video. Thank you.